Okay, well, Martin, thanks again for taking the time to chat. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Martin Hall. I'm a visual effects supervisor, and I'm currently working for Paramount and CBS.
Cool. And I ask every guest this because I'm always fascinated by how different the answer is. But for you, growing up, did you always want to be in some kind of creative career, or is it something that you kind of fell into later on?
I started in the fine arts, so yes, I got to say, yes, it was absolutely in the creative endeavors that I was going to end up in. I started out in fine arts, painting, sculpting, and fell in love with cinema, which I always kind of dug into, but more and more media, multimedia, video, filmmaking, and how that synthesis comes together with visual effects.
Yeah, you don't hear the term multimedia anymore, but back in the day, that was
Yeah, well,
big.
if you're an old school chat like myself, yeah, you start that world. For me, it was like, yeah, painting and sculpting is cool, but what if I could feed a video feed to my sculpture? And,
Yeah,
then what?
that was it. I think for me, 3D was like I was always a traditional artist, and I couldn't paint these polished SGI renders, so it was just like, huh, I want to get into that. Yeah, I was curious
Yeah,
too. Like for you, how did you first break into the visual effects industry?
I come to it from live action shooting, lighting and shooting of model miniatures, really. So that was kind of my entree. So I, started in the late '90s, coming into LA, running around shooting second unit, feature work in Los Angeles, and kind of just luckily fell into it with some peers of mine from film school. So we stumbled into lighting and shooting model miniatures back in the day at a place called DreamQuest Images. Boy, I mean, I really feel hugely blessed to be kind of part of that culture that glommed onto the last golden age of model miniatures in the analog days and shooting on film to evolve into the digital realm.
Yeah, I
Uh,
was a big fan of them back in the day. There's a lot of amazing projects that are, involved in.
it was kind of an instant love affair of seeing like technicians and camera tech and computer programmers and motion control operators and lighters, gaffers, DPs, model makers, just a huge synthesis of every discipline, business people, producers, all coming together. And it's like, wow, I mean, this is amazing. It's like it's everyone coming together, bringing their best game, to the project, and just a fantastic brotherhood, of artistry and technicians.
Just to touch on a few of the projects you did at DQI, was like Armageddon, like Flubber was for you. Like, do you want to name drop a few? Just because, again, like I think it's pretty fascinating. That for me was when I was definitely obsessed with visual effects and stuck outside the bubble, living in Australia, trying to figure out how do I work in this film industry, which was literally just in LA, Vancouver, and New York at the time.
I think my first project there was Deep Rising, which was like, go big and over the top and have fun. It was amazing.
One of my favorites.
Spend months building a gorgeous model and then blow it up at high speed with 12 cameras,
So that was the big
and make
line or
sure
whatever at the end of the film.
exactly the big giant cruise liner. So yeah, and it's just like, wow, that's amazing. So getting in there, lighting, on a small microscopic level, on a big, HMI moon exterior level, we did some really cool stuff of, small green screen inserts on that model, knowing that we're going to go back into a digital realm and split out CG water, and blending with the model miniature. So, it's just like all cells are firing in your head of how all this stuff goes together, and what you're bringing from the analog and what the cool chaos of the explosion, and of course how that's going to marry to digital elements of it and plate photography of talent. So yeah, I was like, okay, this is great, this is amazing, and it's fun, it's creative, all sorts of different people involved in the process. Of course, Armageddon was a good changing and pivot point for how the technology was evolving. So models and miniatures, obviously we knew we could really get a camera really close to it. We did a lot of really cool flybys and up close and personal shots on green screen. And then, we knew it's like, well, let's try a couple of, CG passes and see what would hold up far enough. And, the early test was like, it's not so great. It's not ideal. And it's like, we're pretty safe here in the analog world. It's going to be fine. But, we actually took the time to actually scan and shoot the entire element, the model miniatures with high detail, and shoot every angle of it and photo project those textures. And then we got pretty good. By the end of the show, there was some really good early CG shots that held up amazingly well, so again, and then it's all about a good mix of both practical and digital.
That's awesome. And I guess at the time, especially where VFX was definitely something that you wouldn't rely on by itself, was always a bridge between a lot of practical miniature and VFX. Like, what was that like for you? Was it something that you could see the writing on the wall that as time progresses, things are just going to keep getting better and better?
Yeah, I mean, at that point I was, evolving what skill set I had, and kind of, I could play around with After Effects, the gateway drug to digital compositing. So, and I was, and we actually were working with them and working with digital artists at the time. And like I was saying, it was like there was few boundaries. It wasn't like them and us. It was all of us, and what we all brought together. So I think that actually helped me kind of evolve my skill set. And I just really worked from the ground up between lighting and shooting model miniatures and kind of production shooting gigs. I would just, work on early Disney restoration projects, so like some really good, interesting, old school cleanups and repairs, and, start getting really good at that just on the ground level. And we're talking like, Matador 64 days. Just, painting, painting frame by frame in a buffer of maybe 5-6 frames. So yeah, I kind of started at the ground level of that, just kind of taught myself. And at that point, my evolution took me to Pacific Title, a classic Hollywood old guard. And, actually, and some of that was a very good and informative experience too, to see like old school roll up, optical title artist adapting to Photoshop, for example. And you're like, wow, these old timers, they're in their 70s and they're picking up Photoshop skills. And it's actually pretty impressive. And it was like pretty informative for me to like, this is great. And seeing it, it's like, it's really about the passion of the artistry and just evolving your tool sets. So, but it was a great opportunity there because there was technology. We're talking, the stuff was available was like a Matador on a paint and Cineon for compositing. So yeah, just did what I could, picked up skills, and took manuals home at night, and and figured it all out. They would still give me the opportunity to take and light and shoot elements and stuff, and we did a lot of that all the time on a lot of projects. Fire elements and explosion elements, spark elements, etc. Just bring out an old Mitchell and just let's roll with it. But no, I just just started to pick up more and more digital skills as it went. And again, like it started with Cineon, evolved into Shake, and kept on going from there.
And that's one thing I love about the podcast is the amount of times I've had to reminisce about Shake, which was great until Apple.
Apple cannibalized it and borged it out for. Yeah, it was amazing to see that things like their DVD application became node based. That's cool, and then and Motion got a pretty good tracker update. That's compelling. But I get it. It's we're a small group of highly specific people with very demanding needs, and make more money selling iPods to the masses, and iPhones to the masses. So
I was curious too, just really quickly, you worked at Sway for a little bit. I was just curious about that because oddly, I've managed to hire like half a Sway in the past couple of weeks for a project I'm on. So it's a bit of like a reminiscing pod there. I never worked there, but I had a lot of friends.
Oh.
Carl Singiano, Hagen, Ilya, Aaron Powell, Alex Thiessen, a lot of other guys there. So, yeah, what was that experience like?
Yeah, Ilya and Hagen. Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, actually, that was a great experience. I mean, I wasn't there in a huge amount of time, but I knew the people there were fantastic. I think Niederhorst was there before myself.
Oh, I was just on the phone with Niederhorst. He's over in Austin working with Robert Rodriguez at the moment. So we had a big catch up about 2 weeks ago, I think. So
yeah,
it's been a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So like many places, they have the magnificent synthesis of bringing through some really good people. I mean, Digital Domain was that as well for me. With just amazing talent that has gone and dispersed across the planet in magical ways. And Sway too. I mean, and they were doing some pretty fun and cool things with real-time car commercials and real-time capture of rigged vehicles, and let people come in and perform stuff. So some really fun and innovative stuff, and it was good to see. in a good company.
I was living vicariously through a lot of the guys there. I'd never worked there, but it was also always fascinating seeing the stuff they're doing. Just to touch on a few things, because I'd love to dive into some of the more recent challenges and things you've been on. But what was it like? Like, you've worked on the Meg and Venom, Love, Death, and Robots. Like, what were some of those projects like to be tied to?
I mean, they're larger projects. I mean, they're all different, as you know. I mean, Meg was, is interesting. Is obviously Sony's a huge pipeline, and you're very blessed with powerful render resources and amazing artists, and it was a fun deep dive, so to speak. But no, it was good. Good people, good talent. Fun times. Did a little katana lighting on some stuff as well. So that was good for me to be able to broaden my skill sets a bit. But actually, I would say like Love, Death, and Robots was like an amazingly fun adventure. It's funny because like they're completely opposite. Where Love, Death, and Robots is an opportunity for the artist to drive the ball. It's like Jerome Chen is the director on the project, and we're just like a group of artists saying like, "Hey, what's a really good idea?" And you're really just getting creative notes back from Fincher, and Miller, Tim Miller, and there are also creatives and animators and filmmakers, and it was hugely collaborative, and just like there's very little like quote unquote studio notes, which the other experience in Meg and other projects, of course, is completely different, as you could expect. So It was one of those rare occasions where like we just all pitched the best ideas as artists and were honest about it, and the best ideas kind of wrung out. So that was a fantastically fun opportunity.
Yeah, LDR has definitely been one that I've had a few of the directors on over time, which has been always fun, as well as obviously Tim Miller, which again I just think it's, as you kind of said, it's been a chance for a lot of amazing artists and creatives just to get together and do cool shit, which usually you got to go through the studio machine, and a lot of that kind of gets diluted down a lot. So I mean, I love it. I hope it goes season 10, season 20. It's really fascinating.
It is, and it's that bite-sized format that you thought had no marketplace too. It's like, if you come from film school, it's like, well, here's your short. It's like, well, that's great. Maybe it's an expensive calling card, but what do you do with it? Netflix, to that respect, is like showing that it is monetizable and you can make a very good product of it. It also harkens back, obviously, and again, the pitch was it's heavy metal. It's the next generation of heavy metal. It's short sci-fi fantasy anthology, and like to see that and see the opportunity to tell compelling stories in a short format and make it marketable is actually really exciting, and really great. And it's also kind of mirror stuff that's being done in Unreal as well. So. And it's a great vantage point for, quote unquote, bite-sized, concise, but effective storytelling. So I think it's actually really compelling, really interesting. And I'm talking with a lot of my peers, and we're talking about different projects, and in development on things that we could approach in that same regard. So I think it is great. I think it's great. And it's a great opportunity. And it is a kind of an opportunity for, people get their voice out and tell different stories and show different visuals and show them what turns them on and what compels them as storytellers.
And not just to other VFX people, and but it's mainstream, it's Netflix, so for everybody else too, which is awesome.
No, exactly. And it does feel much more like a accessible, creative, cool, almost like an indie market, but sellable, product, which is great. It's like, it's got to be some kind of, huge Marvel tent pole in order to be made. And it's like, you know what? Not really. Just make a really compelling story and make it as visually cool as possible and go.
For you, going from visual effects on the vendor side, doing comp and soup work, like what was it like moving, like the whole experience moving to client side? It's
great. I mean, it's certainly a different skill set, those quote unquote soft skills. It's all about storytelling, really. I mean, either, even on a very small, quaint, hyper-focused composite level, all the way up to, communicating concepts, themes, and visuals on the visual effects supervisor level. It's all about storytelling and just, doing the best representation of that visual you can. So in my case, it's obviously working with the creatives, solving creative problems and technical problems, best ways to go about things like we're doing today. There's huge value in kind of coming up to the ranks of working from like ground floor paint, roto composite, all the way up to know, what to look out for, to look what's going to be a problem, how to make everyone's job a lot easier and get the best results. I think that's the best thing, is because you see it from all sides, and you really can protect your artists and embolden them to do amazing work, and not have to deal with just ridiculous calls on set, and make the best product possible.
Love that. And I guess for you, and I know this is not an easy question, is like, what's the typical day-to-day of an on-set visual effects supervisor? And obviously every day is going to be different depending on if you're actually on set or you're prepping for a project.
So right now it's kind of literally today and this morning is very much all that stuff. I'm still right now we're going back and forth with all the different departments of what we're all bringing to the table, and what's the best way to approach it, and what makes this shot work together, which is the unique part about it, the best and most difficult part about visual effects and filmmaking in general, but it's also the most magical part, especially when you really can find that creative empathy with all the different departments and really solve each other's problems and bring your best game to creating one common goal. So it's a lot of it is departmental meetings with figuring out, like right now, it's just like, where do we hand off from wardrobe to production design to set design, how's lighting and cinematography going to influence the visual effect? The project I'm on right now, it's actually very visual effects dependent. So it's a lot of feedback from me and then what helps me versus what I could offer to other departments, and and of course in synthesis with the director and producers. How do we make it reasonable, fast, and tell the story correctly?
Yeah, you've worked with Paramount, HBO, Amazon, Netflix. For you, what's that experience been like, and do you find there being a lot different between different productions, or do you find a lot of similarities between each of them, knowing that streaming is becoming such a massive medium over film and a lot of other typical productions we're used to?
They all offer their own challenges. I like some of the streamers are, you think, okay, well, faster content or something, but obviously, it really depends on the project. I've had projects that are very well developed and given enough time. The HBO, some of the HBO projects I've done, gotten Emmys for, so it's been great, and really thought out well and given enough time to actually execute correctly and, bring a really amazing result to the screen. And I've done very quick. I've done a lot. I've done all things good and all things bad. A lot of diversity in the stuff I've worked on over my career, within the containers of budget and time and quality of artists, and talent you can bring to it. You do the best job you can. And, some of it's been really super magical. Some of it's very hugely collaborative. Some of it's been difficult and painful, but still, valuable and informative and helped me in my career. So, it's all beneficial. But I think, the streamers are doing great stuff. I think content wise, they've got a fast and fabulous distribution pipeline, and of course features and films and brick and mortar movie theaters are in an interesting point at this time in 2023, and we'll see how things evolve, but I think there's still value for that as well. I think it will become much more almost like a concert, where a live action performer, comes into play, where there is more added value in that communal process, which arguably that is the best argument for the communal experience of watching a project with an audience and getting that biofeedback of the people around you, how they accept it, or is obviously a director, producer, or someone creative or involved in the project or involved in your screening experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's great. And I was curious for you, as an on-set visual effects supervisor, what's the typical tools you're taking on set?
Well, I mean, you have to get your head around, obviously camera technology is what we're shooting with and how that's going to correlate and roll into post and post-production. So, it's Probably the usual of what we most use. You know, it's gathering lighting information as much as possible. I think I'm embracing, kind of the newest and quickest technologies. You know, I've brought on crews with for whole lidar and scanning crews and stuff like that, depending on projects. But I've also, technologies of, photogrammetry in your pocket and nerf technologies now that I'm kind of digging into and embracing. It's always changing. There's always amazing opportunities, and I get calls, and I talk with peers all the time about what's out there and what's available, and just constantly relearning and seeing rethinking how can that make our jobs better, and how much information can we get, and it worked out well. So polycam technology, a lot of in-camera Luma AI and different nerf technologies. And we're on our production side at Paramount. We're doing some set scanning for different skets with sets and bringing them into Unreal. So we're embracing a lot of that technology. And but yeah, and of course photo texture capturing as well, and in some cases cross poly, texture maps and stuff, but yeah, I mean, just really the valuable contribution is to inform how the shot could be the best, and if we can make subtle adjustments to it, how this can make your job and make the final result so much more beautiful and painless. And really, how can you work best with different departments and stuff. And I think really you get, I've been lucky where I've got, huge amount of very positive feedback where it's like, wow, you really know your stuff. And, this, you really, thank you for helping this, this project, this makes it so much easier and we move so much faster when you're available to, kind of work with us. So, I think it's certainly beneficial. Absolutely. And, I kind of come from lighting and shooting, so it's kind of my first entree into the business. So I'm pretty comfortable in both realms, taking it all the way through post and, from early inception production meetings through, best practices on set.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's pick the right weapon for the right job. I'm VFX Suping a movie for Paramount actually at the moment, and we're the sole vendor, so I've got an on-set VFX supervisor. I was chatting about that the other day because in a lot of cases these days, you just bring a Ricoh Theta or Theta along, and you can do a lot of photogrammetry, or hell, even use cam depending on what it is. And other times you've got to bring in the lidar, the drone, the DSLR with like a Manfrotto gigantic tripod, and the thing is carrying all that crap around is just, it's heavy, it's slow, it's clunky, and you end up treading a lot of people's toes versus just being able to walk up, capture your stuff, and walk off set and be the hero, not slow everything down.
Right. No, I mean, you're right. It really depends on the needs, and it depends on how much time you have. You really have to make that calculation in your head. And, a lot of times, you're working with people who don't necessarily have that creative empathy for you or know what's involved with what you can need or would make your job so much better. I can bust out an 8mm fisheye and go old school and do take my time. But again, I have to take my time to get a mega stitch. But the ability to kind of, and I do use a Ricoh Theta, Z1 currently with where I'm at. And no, it's quick, fast, and painless. And that, is just get in there and get it and have it. But on the other side of it, if I have taken my time and built stuff, it's like, it's safe productions of like, what really is a shot that pans us from A to B. And it's like, well, I can make that for you, by the way. So, and then because I have the resolution, I have, so all these technologies get better and better. And, I'm just watching stuff today with, kind of newer technologies popping out. And, the calculation is always time versus time, money, and making your day on production, but getting what you need for post as fast as possible. I've been in the luxury of the opportunity of take your own unit out and go shoot what you need on different plates, and that's fantastic. Or you're very much trying to keep up and catch up and work with very fast moving productions that don't really care, So really, it's reading the room, it's your communication with the different departments, and then and the trust level of what you can bring to the game.
That's a good point too. Like you mentioned before about soft skills, how important is that for someone working on set? And especially like if you can think of some examples of what are the typical things on your first day of working on set with a new crew that you typically focus on, whether it is getting to know the gaffers, getting to become good friends with the first AD, so that way you actually have someone who's got your back. For you, what
Right.
are the typical things that you make sure you do every time?
Like I said, like this empathy of knowing what everyone else's department is, and you understand what how they're trying to move and how fast they're trying to get things done, and if you impede or help things. But I think knowing what you need to do and how you can do it fast is I mean, you get instant respect. It is just communicating. I mean, it's just communicating. This is what I need. It's going to take about this much time, and I'll be out of your way. And having those calculations. There's times where it's like, yeah, we don't have the time to do it, or we do, and I'll come back. I'll game plan, and I'll shoot what I need, pick up what I need, or find something in a similar situation, or you just start talking the talk, and I'll talk, and two or three cameras is like, if this guy steps out after the shot, can you roll this and get me a clean plate? That'd be fantastic, And it's like, yeah, no problem for me. I'm done with my shot. I got everything I need. And you're just communicating. It's just like you're not hindering anything. It's just like the calculations. You know what production needs to tell the story. You know what's going to hit the editing room table, and then if you can make subtle adjustments, you get everything you need for visual effects. It's knowing what everyone's department is, knowing camera, knowing when you could just roto, and when your best case scenario should be keying it, and being respectful of time. Time is money on both sides of the budget, and you have to make those calculations, and you have to communicate with every other department. So I think the more you understand and show that you understand that whole process, the more respect you get from ADs, and the more they respect how fast and how effective you can be, and how helpful you can be, especially in the whole creative process. There's a lot of times where you're working with actors, and they really are actually involved, and they really want to know, like, how is this going to work, and how does it play out, in the final result, and how does that inform their performance. So it's a lot of that. It's a lot of that soft skills. But then, if you come from that filmmaking background, you get it. You get how the shots have to go together. You get how the performance has to go together, and how visual effects informs that process.
I was curious for you, when you're starting a new project as a VFX supervisor on client side especially, but what are the typical things you do in the beginning, whether it's questions you need answered, or just the typical process that you find every time that you're starting a new project?
It really depends on the scope, as you would imagine, of what we're trying to achieve creatively. But I mean, oftentimes production designers they're speaking the same language that you are, and cinematographers and gaffers are speaking the same language that you are. So you're just figuring out what you can contribute to each. And I think I was blessed early in my career of like working with, even shooting model miniatures, and working with set designers and model miniature makers, and saying like, what can I provide? What can we do in post? How can I, light things, or how can you offer an opportunity for me to do something creatively or technically better and easier? So it's just, you're going to find that, if you understand everyone else's, where they're coming to it, and what they have to bring to the table, that creative empathy, then you really just bring kind of a spitball back and forth. It's like, what if I do this way, and I know this is going to be hard for you. What if I offer a solution on post side of it, and versus what they want to do practically. So I think, like, if you're working with good people, and they all are masters of their game and bringing their best game to the table, I think you can all work together very creatively and find really good solutions to creative problems.
I'm curious too, more when you were project to project, especially as a VFX soup, how did you make sure you always had the next project lined up? From
show to show to show, you never know. I think you build a reputation in this industry. I think you build a network in this industry, and you build trust in this industry. And as we know, it's a small industry, and people know you. And I think with that comes a lot of trust, and with that comes a lot of opportunity, And I'm like everyone else in this business. It's always been like, oh yeah, you'll start, and there's going to be times where there's like, hey, there's nothing going on next. Again, I think the thing that leans into this business is it is creative. It is a collaboration of creative people. So with that, obviously has to come the network. It's like, if you're putting together a team, it's just like, who's amazing at muscle rigging? This person. Who's amazing at lighter? This person. It's like, who's doing some awesome effects work? This person. And you really just like, I mean, it's almost at this level, and I've kind of done some producing as well. It's just like you kind of build in your head the best case scenario to put the best team together, you know. So I think with that whole process comes a broadening of networking and understanding where people are from and what their passions are, what they want to do, and then pursue it that way. So I think that's been hugely advantageous. And I think, you know, with the things that people think are like limitations, or, you know, the rough parts of your career of, like, you know, traveling and jumping to different place to place, comes great opportunity with, you know, diversification of your skills and the people you know across the planet, you know. So like what you see as the worst case scenario of, like, oh my God, I've got to go to Vancouver, or I've got to go to, you know, another place, you know, New Zealand, comes great opportunity, because I mean, in some cases you'll see people you worked with for years on the other side of the planet. In some cases you build great relationships with brand new people you never worked with before and find a kinship. Turning what you think is a disaster or the horrible things about this career can be your next best, you know, building over the time, your most powerful asset.
Yeah, and it is so funny how small the industry is. Like, I was just on a call with a friend of mine. He's souping Robert Downey Jr.'s new show for HBO they're in Thailand right now shooting. And this is funny because I'm up in Portland, Oregon right now, and
Right.
most of the crew are actually from Oregon, it seems. And on top of that, my friend was asking for a contact that he wanted to reach out for a different project, and I was like, you know, their company is actually in Thailand, of all places, so it's just like down the street. So I mean, the more people you know, the more that everyone kind of sprawls out, so it's becomes a very, you know, worldly place where everyone is everywhere, which is kind of great.
No, it does. I mean, like, it's funny because, you know, the evolution of this business used to be a very condensed and, like, you know, monoliths of 500, 600 artists, you know, and with that, you know, with some of that shakeup and with some of the, you know, the more rough times, you know, with leaner, more agile visual effects companies and vendors, you know, you got those big net hits, the Big Bang Theory. It really just explodes and just propagates into, like, very potent, powerful artists all over the world, kind of doing their own things, doing their own startups, starting their own companies, you know, becoming entrepreneurs, or, you know, working for different companies. And then, you know, if you know those people, you know, and you've worked with them long enough, you're able to lean into those relationships for sure.
Definitely. And I'm curious, like, you're now at CBS VFX. What's that experience been like for you?
It's been great. More studio side. It's more, you know, it's doing a lot of different projects and a lot of different. It's still very similar. It's like there's a lot of diversity in the different things you're doing, from you know, very quick and crazy and fun timelines of MTV and Nickelodeon to very, you know, broad, you know, dense and timely timelines like you know, Paramount Plus content. You know, they offer, you know, Rabbit Hole, you know, take, you know, an opportunity to kind of, you know, dig into it a little deeper and do things more broadly. But it's great because there's so much different, you know, genres. There's so many different types of projects. You know, it offers a lot of interesting different ways of working and different projects to work on. It's been good also. You know, it's like we have obviously a deeper roster of different content, different artists. We're diversified in, you know, real-time technologies as well as, you know, classical visual effects techniques. So yeah, it's great. It's been a blast.
And speaking of Rabbit Hole, I was curious if you could talk a little bit about it, as well as how did you first get involved?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a project coming in fast and furious, like many, and you know, as many of us, you know, Paramount Plus as well as other streamers, you know, we're trying to, you know, spin up and build out content and work well. You know, I was blessed with my team and the producers I work with having a very good relationship with the showrunners already, so they already had that shorthand in line. And this one we had to get a lot done in a fairly quick time, but yeah, it was great. It was one of those projects that expands bigger than you expected. There was a lot of world building with it, so it was fun. And that's something I kind of like to do, whether it's, you know, old school, you know, classical, historical recreations, or in this case, it was an amalgamation of Ontario for Manhattan. You know, and
Doing a bunch of them myself right now.
yeah, I bet. Yeah, with how that works out with best practices and finances and taxes. But no, it's interesting because it's almost you're mashing up the best of different locations and seeing what works for for literally the photography and how you could execute it. So, I mean, this was and it had a lot of different requests and a lot of different tasks and techniques we had to utilize, and it's intrigue, but it's fun. It's like anything else. It's like digging in to get your head around what's most important to the storytellers, to the showrunners. So in this case, we spoke a lot about what's inspiring this project, and there's a lot of discussions about things like Manchurian Candidate, and things the French Connection and things like that are more thriller, espionage, and that kind of genre. And in this case, it was like actually it's interesting just speaking how my visuals inform creative beats and visual performances and violent intentions in some cases. I mean, it gets pretty it gets a little bloody here and there, but a lot of it was some really interesting world building using some real-time technologies and some classical visual effects techniques. And we did a lot of different work. I mean, giant explosions and technical splits between different performances, a lot of run and gun green screen work in the streets of Ontario, and kind of making that work blend in pretty seamlessly, stealing the best of Times Square and seeing how that matches up with Canada, so it's some interesting challenges for sure. And this one the timeline wasn't forever and a day, so we had to work pretty fast. We had about 200 shots, so it was pretty sizable show. But no, the best part is really getting in the heads of the creatives and seeing what you can bring to the table. And there's a lot of shots that were shot on set and beautiful, and in our cases we're like, what would make this better in post if we can kind of make it more jarring and scary and more dramatic or impactful. So we had a lot of those discussions, and I think that was that's when I get excited about like what I can contribute to the storytelling process as designed by the showrunners. And I think that's something also valuable, even as like I'm just a small cog in a big machine, kind of as a visual effects artist on the ground level. It's like, what I mean, you're really telling part of the story visually, whether it's like what you want to say, like, how am I going to make this impactful? What's the goal of this as a storyteller? You really want to start asking yourself that, even as a composer, even as a modeler, and certainly as an animator. What is this? What do you want to convey to the audience? And I worked with Fincher, and I worked with a lot of great directors, and I think like those are the things that like, wow, it's like, I think this person would be kind of just arrogant and much more narcissistic about just their intent of what's inside their own head and how amazingly cool they are. But it's not. It's like, if you're really telling good storytelling, you're asking yourself constantly, does the audience get it, or how do I go about telling this visually so the audience does get this, and how are you going to tell that story? So getting outside your head, and that's kind of this pitfall always artists have. Even if you're a painter or sculptor or a visual effects supervisor or artist, it's like, yeah, you get it because you're inside your own head, but does the audience get it? And that's the huge challenge.
I love that, and it's so very true. When it comes to approaching the project initially, when you're going through the script treatment, like, was there anything that stood out as being exceptionally challenging? Like, okay, this is one I'm gonna have to circle back to. What was your experience like leading up to it?
Well, I mean, I think it just had a lot of, there's a lot of run and gun. There's very, base visual effects kind of treatments. But then there was this, like, a lot of, encryption technology, and intrigue. There's a lot of, there's telling stories with graphics and inserts. A lot of it is, corporate espionage, obviously. Telling that story to the world, being trying to make a visual that helps augment that story. A lot of it is creative problem solving as well. It's like, we can't get to this one location, we have to extend it. And that's something that's like just a baseline thing that any project's going to face. So location, time, expanse of world. And there's a lot of those kinds of shots, a lot of those kinds of world building shots. It's a lot of run and gun dirty stuff on, shot on phones, and then like, okay, well, let's track this in and make this work and make it look like beautiful and cool. as a digital media, and just, very untraditional and crazy run and gun stuff, as well as some really beautiful photography as well, and how that gets integrated with the rest of it. Some of it's your classic, like, how do I make this stunt work and how do I make it work safely, but very impactful and scary and amazing, which I've done a lot of that kind of work as well between,
Yeah.
All sorts of things exploding, people dying with swords and being chopped up, the usual, the usual job of visual effects.
You guys are like CBS VFX typically is doing all in-house effects. Like, do you work with any other vendors, or is it more one-offs when it's kind of outside the spectrum of what you guys do?
It's funny because, like, you would think going into it, it's just a small thing, but no, we're doing HBO projects, we're doing Amazon projects, Netflix. So it's also it's the CBS Paramount ecosystem, but we're doing a lot of other projects with other different streamers. It's like anything, make sure you get the right team for the right project. If not, you augment, but depending on the project, of course. So I think with anything, it's just like getting your head around what the needs are, what you're trying to tell visually, and how you're serving that story.
Cool. And just with Rabbit Hole, do you want to elaborate on any particular sequences, or give the general gist of what the show is about?
I mean, the show is about corporate espionage. I mean, it's great because it's got an amazing cast with Kiefer. You have Charles Dance. You have Peter Weller. It's classic intrigue and some violence. Again, a lot of it is world building and telling about the technology and how that informs the story. Deceit, encryption. What is reality? But it's very based. I mean, it's very, run and gun. And so with that, it's like telling the story quickly and adapting the best technique as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Just to pivot for a second, I was curious too, because we've talked about briefly Polycam or NERF or neural rings fields. Like, for you, how do you stay on top of new technology coming out, and just in general, like new approaches to doing things in visual effects?
Again, your network of people who are doing this stuff. And I have people reach out to me about, they have needs. And I think that, and teaching, like seeing technology as well, and teaching people who are new to, or actually ask those questions about, hey, I want to do this, and how do I go about this? Or productions as well. I got a call right before I came out here to New York on this project of like, kind of going old school analog, but how that fuses with real world, NVIDIA drivers for real-time cameras. It's funny, like how cycles of technology go back and recannibalize themselves. I mean, like, I worked from film days through digital acquisition, and then I went back to a lot of projects working with film, like the HBO Winning Time project, which was shot all film. So I mean, and it's weird, and then you'd be like, okay, so can we take this technology and get a video tap out of it, or can we do a real-time camera tracking technology with a 1990s Panavision Platinum? You're like, well, let's see, how do I retrofit an old technology with new? So a lot of those are the necessities of, like, this project needs this technology, and then just figuring out the research or how you go about this problem. I mean, that's always been like the exciting, like, tinkering inventor side of visual effects. It's like, we have this new challenge, how do we go about it, or what's the best way we can go about it? The cool part about the industry is that it also gets often infused with research and universities and technologies and white papers, and as we know how fast, like, those theoreticals get rolled into working day technology. So it's pretty amazing. It's like and it even gets faster and faster. I think like we talked about HDRIs and how it's like, what we could do with that image, and just how fast that rolled into production is pretty amazing. The same thing with, like, I start in 10-bit Cineon film scans. Like, well, you're never gonna need anything bigger than that. It's 10K. Okay, maybe we'll go bigger with a 4K or scan for IMAX or something like that, but you would never need anything bigger than that. But and then you feel that comfort level. I mean, again, it's funny because I came into this business with, like, the classic Mitchell camera, which is the iconography of your Maya camera, and it's like, well, there it is. It's never going to change, but obviously it always changes. It's always a moving target. But the cool thing is harkening back to those threads of commonalities, like rear screen projection. I knew people and people in that technology. Well, guess what? It's back in the form of LED technology or the volume.
Yeah, everything's evolving constantly. And is there any tools or technology, even apps that you rely on right now or that you've got your eye on for the future?
Yeah, I mean, for just general acquisitions and things, I think some of the technologies I've been digging into for just set scanning, just because it's so useful to have that information. So yeah, NERFs is one of it, and different variants of those technologies are amazing. And I know it's been very positive in terms of how it can be implemented in real-time technologies as well. So I think those are very useful. I mean, I've been playing with on-set mocap technologies as well, just image-based machine learning on-set mode caption, because there's cases where I can we just get this information, and can we do it now? It's like, sure, I get, now this technology is mobile, it's in your pocket, it's a lot quicker. So there are some of those processes out there that I've been playing with specifically, and seeing how these things are useful.
Love that. Yeah, there's so much. I just had Nico, the CEO of Wonder Dynamics, who's doing Wonder Studio, which is really revolutionary, as well as Anthony, who's the CEO of Move AI, which is
right.
The motion captures. I mean, for me, it's selfishly the stuff that I kind of want to dive into myself. So it's a chance just to start asking a million questions. But yeah, I'm super excited to see where all this heads to. It's definitely making life easier and easier.
Yeah, we're playing with some runway actually on this on this particular project, and just to kind of see what it offers, and actually some really cool, wacky, creative, visceral things, as well as some actually just nuts and bolts. How well does this work for cleanup for some stuff? I played with some technologies in the early, that I was optimistic about and didn't quite pan out, and then some I'm just blown away by. So it's a matter of finding the time in production. Like, actually, we have two dedicated teams, and one doing a traditional approach and then one doing machine learning approach right now. So it's like, what has the best offer? What's the most malleable if we need to make changes to it? And how do we go from there? So it's I think the same thing with Rabbit Hole. It's like how far can we push some Unreal technology versus what we're gonna do traditionally. So it's just like, you push things as far as they go. You take notes, you see what works well, and you always are seeing how things evolve. So, and again, harkening back to like your network, I know people from the film world now and gaming technology and vice versa, and you get some real feedback back in that network of, hey, what's going to help your solution, and just making those phone calls and saying, hey, how do we support EXR and full float renders, and where are things at with AOVs and breakouts? Just you push things as far as you can and try to adapt what you know about technology as quickly as possible.
This has been really great. I appreciate your time getting to chat. Where can people go to find out more about CBS VFX?
Well, it's CBX-VFX.com. All things Paramount to check us out. And then, of course, my own website is Epic VFX, epic-vfx.com. Find me on Instagram and Twitter and all that fun stuff under Martin B. Hall. Awesome. But yeah, CBS VFX.
Cool. I'll make sure to link to everything in the show notes. But Martin, this has been really awesome getting to catch up. And is there anything else you want to add?
We're in crazy, tumultuous times, but out of that comes becomes great opportunities. Being creative and being flexible and adapting is where it's at. That's the best thing I can offer students, people coming into this business, and saying, like, keep your mind open, keep flexible, play with things that you feel that you don't know, and try to learn them, and be honest with what that can offer the process and how it informs it.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks so much. This has been really awesome.
All right, Allan. Thank you